Okay, so the artists that you have, I on every podcast you have Carrie, an update from Carrie, and then you have artist, and maybe somebody else, relevant to the business. With the artists that you get, is the impetus, because you said you had originally wanted to start a podcast, you wanted your own podcast with artists. Is
Yeah.
the impetus in getting these artists to talk about Record Store Day, or are they just, so when you get them for the podcast, you said that
Mhm.
they a lot of them appreciate the records and the business of making of records and the independent record stores. But are you getting the artists that you I guess the bottom line is, are you getting the artists that you want to talk to?
Yes. So here's the thing. There's only been a
That's
few
simply
times.
put.
Yeah. So what it is I what I bring to it is we don't have to talk about Record Store Day with these artists every time, but there is a through line, which is I'm not I never forget that physical media is the thing that we celebrate on that show, and that's everyone has their reason why they get to do a certain show. It's not as blatant for me as those old TV shows from the 60s where they had to smoke Chesterfield cigarettes, but I don't have to, and I don't make any claims that I don't believe in. But I think if I get Andrew Sandoval, who's the Monkees manager, and he's also done a lot of work for Rhino Records, creating box sets, and is a great archivist
Yeah.
of music. I can have him on the show. We don't have to talk specifically about Record Store Day to say that this is relevant to the idea of physical media. And the same thing with I've had people who are authors who've written about music, and they're not even selling an album. They might be selling the book physically in independent bookstores, which is still kind of our sister industry. And also books are sold in record stores, so sometimes. But I'm not so slavish to the idea of it being retail centric the whole time. But I think that what I do is I bring if I'm about to brag maybe, but I think I bring a broad knowledge of the idea of what this is. I'm an author myself. I'm now a documentary producer. That I am all about communicating storytelling, and that's my thing. Is I like in my own work telling stories. I like getting people on who have stories to tell, and that through line it's very human, so that's why every conversation is one-on-one about what gets you going, what's your creative process, and what factors influence the work you do, and if I get to do that for the rest of my life in any format, it's a good life. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It
it's great.
is.
Yeah, you've got some wonderful artists, not just classic rock artists. Like as I mentioned, Devo, and you've talked to Neil Finn and Kurt Smith, Tears for Fears, Bonnie Raitt. But you're talking to a lot of up and coming, like some of my favorites,
Japanese
like Wet
breakfast,
Leg.
Wet Leg, Japanese Breakfast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Robert Glasper, who was a great, he did Black Radio 3, and and he did the music for the Winning Time on HBO.
One of my favorites.
And John Baptiste, and these are people that I didn't grow up listening to. This is like people who are happening now. I want all of that, by the way. We just banked an interview with Soccer Mommy, and she's got a great new record that's coming out, and Jeff Tweedy, which is, I guess, Dad Rock. I just did. There's the very next episode of the podcast is a Wilco special about Cruel Country, but I also banked an interview with this group called Stars from Montreal. Stars have this great, beautiful new album called From Capleton Hill.
They've been around for a while. Stars.
Yeah, they've been around for a while. And I also have an interview with Nabil Ayers, who is the president current. I'm just seeing his listing. Well, he's in the record business. He started 2 different record stores, and his father was Roy Ayers, the jazz guy, and he's written a book about his life. And so that is not even a musician, but he's very relevant because he's talking about he has a whole multiracial history and music history, indie music and jazz, and it's just so this is what I love. Is what we have. I'm looking at my list. We have some stuff that's pending that I can't mention, but some pretty exciting interviews coming up.
We won't tell anyone.
Yeah, but they all seem.
But I do try. To answer your question, I do want it to be. I want to have as many brand new artists. Like I've got a standing invitation to Haim. I've got a standing invitation to. I still want to get Phoebe Bridgers, even, like I've been asking for 3 years. I want whoever's. I want Billie Eilish and Phineas. Like I want them both to come on the show. I don't know we're big enough yet. I don't know if those people have a million people asking for them, so they'll do maybe 5 out of the 60,000 people that are asking. I want to be the one that they say yes to, and all I can do is just keep doing a good interview and hope that somewhere people go, oh, you'll get a good shake from Paul Myers. He'll let you talk,
Yeah,
when I'm interviewing. Not
you
when
got
I'm
big
talking,
vinyl
but
behind you. You should be able to do this, right? Just-
Yeah, big vinyl. Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, right.
Okay, go ahead, Holly.
No, I was going to say you had Johnny Marr too.
So these are what I call my hero interviews, by the way. So
Yeah.
there's categories. There's up and coming, breaking now, like Wet Leg. I was so excited because we had that in the can. Just as their album was coming out, we already had that interview, which was, it rarely happens like that. And the Tears for Fears one was good too because their new album had just come out when we had that interview. So,
And it's great.
then there's my hero interviews are Johnny Marr, Andy Partridge of XTC was one of my favorites because that as a musician, XTC were like a huge influence on me. I've had Todd Rundgren on twice.
Right. Can I stop? Okay. Yeah. So you mentioned both those guys in one breath. Todd Rundgren and Andy Partridge. Did you talk
Yeah.
about either one of them during your interviews? Okay.
Yeah, I think we did.
And they love each other. They're still mutual. They. What can you touch
They
on?
actually have. They had a lot of tension when they made the record Skylarking. Both parties, I think, were can be very ornery. Andy protecting himself as an artist, and I understand that. And Todd, had a job to do. And Todd was also, by his own accountability, like he said, he could be very snarky with people. And there was just a definite turf war on that record that part of it still persists, but they both respect. Andy has said very nice things about Todd as a producer who managed to, fashion an album out of that situation. And Todd is very much a big fan of Andy Partridge as a songwriter and a musician. So they have never ever. They both come to a point where they don't want this to be the only story is that they didn't get along. And there's still some things that either of them say about each other. And even me saying this now, and actually Andy and Todd both email me. So I don't want to take sides on anything, but I am a big fan of XTC and a big fan of Todd Rundgren. So you can imagine, think of the children here in the middle. Like, I hate it when mommy and daddy fight, but yeah.